Hey guys, this is Oshi and this is going to be a video response to Kelly's video and many other people, because I've seen this hashtag going around and I really enjoyed watching other people's selection. At first I wasn't, I was like, I don't want to, I don't need to do this because I just enjoy watching other people's videos and that's enough. But as it's usual, it happens often that when I really enjoy a tag and I have decks that I can, use for it, I usually end up doing a video. So yeah, here it is. Also, we were just, walking home, my sister and my nephew the other day after a really heavy rain, and you know that you have. It's not a problem, but you're a card reader when you find a wet, a soaked, card that belongs to a children's game on the street, and you pick it up and you're like, I'm gonna take it home, I'm gonna dry it, and I'm gonna, use it for something because this was a card sent to me by someone or something. And by the way, this is the, I don't know, cross-eyed, I think that's the one in English, Knight. But because it's red-head, it kind of makes me think about a Knight of Wands. So yeah, I just wanted to show that because I was laughing at myself, I didn't take it too seriously, but I find it these things funny. So the decks are not coming in any particular order. I just put them on my table, and I just gotta start with the one closest to me. So don't judge any deck on the basis of when they appear in the video, please. So first one is coming without a box because the box is too big to fit in the screen, and I can't be bothered anyway. This is the modified, trimmed and edged Raven's Prophecy. There's a few cards. I mean the backs are wonky, but I realized I don't care. But the cards are coming originally with a very big orange border, and unfortunately I didn't want to trim it, but they were distracting me. But I shouldn't talk about that. So, oh, look at that, how beautiful. I used this deck only twice, I think, so far, and both of them were readings to connect with my ancestors. I mean, not even ancestors, because I always think about ancestors as someone in the far distant past, but just relatives who were, who passed on. And it was such a special and strong and a bit worrisome. Some of the cards were like, ooh, reading, but it felt so right to use this deck for that. And if you know the books which this deck connects to, unfortunately it's not based on, because that would be even better. Then you know how meaningful it can be for something that crosses over to, I would say, dip into time in a way, because time is not linear, it's just all over the place and you can access it. And for me this deck did that. So even if I'm never gonna do a reading with it, which I doubt, or I switch to using it differently for that purpose, to try to connect to loved ones specifically, I don't have any other decks that I would actually use. So this is, for that reason, irreplaceable. That was a hard word. I mean, it wasn't just for me right now. The next one is something that I wasn't expecting to be irreplaceable. That's a hard word. I'm sorry, I'm after work, so my mind is a bit like bleh. And that's the StarDragons Oracle. And I got this deck because I was like, oh, these are kind of okay dragons, before the Smokish and Embers. Edged it in a kind of metallic green, which really suits the cards. But I don't know why. I mean, they have this same kind of bow that every Los Carabeo deck recently develops, which is kind of annoying. But I used this Oracle for daily pulls in January when I was going through a really tough time. That was the first one in this year, and it was quite surprising how it wasn't just, you know, like supportive, but it was very supportive in a way that it actually gave me practical things to do about the day, you know, how to get by, because that was a time when I was just like, I need to get over just one day, you know, one day at a time. And this deck was there for me in ways that I never expected this deck or any other deck. And oh, look at the time. So now I know that if I'm hitting that low and I want to pull a card, because I don't always want to pull a card when I'm there. That was the second part of this year so far, when I was just like, nope, not pulling any cards. But if I want to, and I want something supportive and actually usable, I will have this deck. So because of that, this deck is not going anywhere, and I will post my few months in where I'm gonna talk about it in more detail soon as well. Let's put this over here. Next one, another one which is such an all-arounder, the Sacred Destiny, which I recently trimmed because I started using it daily and I have small hands and it was just hard to shuffle. And when you only use a deck, you know, every once in a while, like there's days between using them, you might be more forgiving, but I'm using it daily and now I'm just, you know, I was like, I need to trim it because it's just hard for me to shuffle. I left a white border because for this deck, I think the white border is really something that adds to the cards, and I didn't want to, you know, lose that, so I left that one. And I specifically use it to communicate these days, at least, but I have other uses as well with, you know, with my higher-ups, divine, source energy, universe, whatever you want to call it. So this little deck is I mean, it's one of my favorite oracles, honestly, and it was a stable part of my practice before that, but ever since I started using it, I might be actually I'm thinking about my moving out of my daily, I mean, other kind of, you know, readings, and only keeping it with this sort of communication, because if this makes any sense, I don't know. It kind of feels like ever since I started using it for this purpose, how to say that? It leveled up. That was the word I wanted to say. So it leveled up, and you know, once you level up something, you don't go back into the lower realm and do the things that were there. You know, you level up, you start on a new level, and I kind of feel like that with this deck. And I have other, you know, oracles that I can use, so it's not like that I have to, even though I really love this deck, but I kind of feel like I would cheapen the experience if I would just use for, you know, questions in pick a card reading and stuff like that, even though I don't think those questions are, you know, meaningless. But they are so much, these cards and the meaning so much closer to me right now that I feel like I would do them this service, if this makes any sense. And I'm not personifying the deck, I'm just talking about the experience that I have when I'm reading it. Do let me know if this makes any sense. Next one is a quite recent one. It's the Mystical Medleys, and this is something that if you watched any of my Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial readings, that you can, you know, you saw it in action. Which card? There's always one card staying in the box. Two of Pentacles, which is a great card for, you know, explaining what I want to say, because I was kind of weird about the expressions in the cards, especially something like this, or the Queens. I don't know if I can show you one, because, or, you know, Seven of Pentacles, it looks like a bit like over dramatic and stuff like that. Here's the Empress. The Empress is a bit like, what's happening? And but the Queen of Wands is the best one, and of course I don't think I'm gonna find it, but here's a similar Queen, and I used it for that trial. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, I wasn't reading for personally for Johnny Depp or Amber Heard. I was reading for the legal sides as a group of people, and it kind of worked perfectly for something like that. And what I mean by that is how people react emotionally to certain situations. This deck worked so well for that. So if now I will get a relationship question, or something like family dynamic, or, you know, workplace related, where you want to know about not the job itself or how much it pays, or, you know, the money side of the working environment, but the people. This deck is brilliant for that. And I'm not saying it's not good for anything else, but for that, this is just so great. And I don't have any other decks that I can use. So this is so right now, obviously, is irreplaceable. And I don't know why I keep trying to say that word. I mean, I don't want to. But, okay, so that's one. I like that. And then I have something similar for the money side of the everyday life experience. And that's the, okay, I have the box somewhere. The Deviant Moon. And this one lives in a bag that I made for it because I love this. I think this pattern just fits the deck so well. Don't ask me why, but it does. And I have the borderless. I think everybody has it. And I kind of forgot how heavy this deck is. Even though I'm kind of considering picking up a bordered version and then trim it because it's just a bit too high at all for me. But when I have questions about, you know, job situations, or, you know, what am I supposed to do? I'm not feeling fulfilled in my job. I want to switch careers or professions. This deck, or, you know, what am I supposed to do to get more money or something like that? Be more hopeful. This deck just works so well for me for that. And probably it's because I imagine the city where all these creatures live, like a steampunkish merchant town, where, you know, everybody is all about the not the money, but just the earthly things. I do have that. You know, everyone is hustling, and there are people who want to earn money the right way, and there are people who want to just cut corners. And I don't know why, but I have that, you know, in my head. So it works so well for that question area that if I ever get a question like that, I always reach for it. Plus, I just love the colors. It's so freaking beautiful, the colors. And for me, it's not creepy. For me, it's not, I don't know, scary or just weird. I just like it. It's nothing like that. I mean, this eye maybe, but the creatures are not. So yeah, I have now 2 decks that I can use for everyday mundane, you know, just involving people side of things, which is great. And I love it that I don't, you know, have to even think about stuff. And not speaking of not thinking about stuff, the Light Seer Tarot. I know everybody has, okay, not everybody, but a lot of people have this deck, and probably a lot of people didn't, you know, broke the Knight of Cups in half like I did. Like, look at that poor thing. Like, can you see? That was an accident, but I got it replaced, fortunately. So I didn't have to buy a new one because I didn't want to. This is a deck that I can just pull up anytime that I don't want to think about if a deck would work for a reading or not. This works for everything. This is just so fundamental or basic in a very, very good way that I will never, ever replace it. And this lives on my, you know, this is pretty much always out. If I do live readings, I did it with this deck last time as well, because I just, you know, I just find it so easy to read with it that just for that, you know, part, being lazy and being in a way, and reading easily when I don't want to, you know, really think about it or do hard shit. This deck works, and not because this deck doesn't, you know, work well for any profound questions. It's not like that. It's just we connected immediately and we love each other. That's just that. Okay. Next one. That was my first Oracle deck, and I don't really pull it out anymore because if I work with the Angelarium cards, I use the, oops, I should have pulled them out, the year 1 and year 2, because, you know, more cards and more choices. Now of course I cannot put them back because something just moved, whatever. But this is how I imagine angels, and there's gonna be a tarot, which makes me so excited. And, you know, that's going to be even more accessible. But I would keep it just for the artwork. Even if I would never ever use it in a reading anymore. Which, like I said, I don't really use this version in any readings. I don't think I had it involved in a reading in more than a year now. Look at that. Look at how cute. Oh, not cute. How magnificent. Magnificent. I can't talk. You know, glorious these are. I mean, I love this angel divination. Isn't it just amazing? I would love to have this on my wall as an artwork. So yeah, I bought this one without knowing anything about Angel of Mysteries. I love this one too. Oracles back then, I just looked at the cards and I was like, I don't care if I will never be able to work with it. Because I knew that it was connected to Kabbalah and everything like that, that I, you know, don't really know anything about. I was like, I don't care, I want it. And that's something that will never leave my connection. And the job that it, you know, the space that it holds up is representing how I look at angels. So the tarot will add to that, but that's gonna be a usable thing because it's a system that I know. So, you know, the two won't replace each other. Another one, the Majestic Earth. This connects me to the Earth, which I know, like, no surprise. But I keep the extra cards in as well. I just love this deck. Okay, what am I doing? It kind of, the way that the Angelarium represents how I look at the angels, it kind of represents how I look at the world and nature, I guess, more, you know, in a big way. I'm looking at things from a bird's eye view. Oh, look at that. That's one of my favorites. This was one of the cards that I was like, oh, I love this. And it works well, really well for me, so I can actually use it in readings. And even though some of the cards have, you know, people, but most of them has nature in it. And these are just things that I can just look at. And like I said, I feel like I'm looking at nature and the world from far away. I don't like that face though. So yeah, that's not going anywhere. It's not, and I don't have any other decks that, even if I have a lot of nature-based decks, but most of them are either, you know, plant-based or animal-based. That's an interesting concept. Based, and I did remove the gold gilding because that kind of gilding cuts into my head. So, you know, it's not going anywhere because I love this deck for that reason, and more. Okay, not much left. Okay, I'm gonna keep those that you cannot see for the last. Okay, next one, Little Prince Tarot. It's such an interesting one because this deck made me think about why I love this deck so much. besides the Lover's card, because look at how perfect this Lover's card is. And I know that a lot of people have decks for, you know, inner child work, or decks that deals with childhood. And I was kind of, you know, looking at all those, but most of them are for childhood trauma, like the Nicoletta Ciccoli. Or, you know, I don't think I've seen one that's about a happy childhood, just in general. Okay, maybe no. I don't have it, but I think the Happy Tarot would be like that. But this one is how I think about my childhood. And that's the looking out into the clouds and always daydreaming about things and imagining that there are other words out there, and not necessarily understanding the implication of things, and, you know, making mistakes because you're just, you know, small and you're learning and stuff like that. But I think that's why I really love this deck, because it reminds me of how I felt about the world when I was a child. And I don't have any other decks, because my childhood was all in all happy. You know, I had my issues because I had 4 siblings, so who doesn't have issues? But I was raised well, I was loved, I was taken care of, so, you know, nothing like that, fortunately. And I know how lucky I am for that, and I do appreciate it. And I do appreciate the fact that other people don't have that, you know, experience. But my mom, for example, was there, my dad was there, and just, I don't know, but there's also a sadness in it, which I always felt but didn't know why. And I think that's just how I was programmed from the start. There are people who are prone to be sad, and there are those who are not, and unfortunately it looks like I'm the first one. And that, you know, that's life. What can you do? Not much. Next one is gonna be the biggest surprise ever. I mean, if you watch my channel, you know that the Smoke, Ash and Embers is going to be on this list, because I said it many times, and this is my dragon deck. And dragons were always special to me. I never could explain why. I always believed that they exist. You're not gonna prove me that they did not. Just because you don't see one doesn't mean they are not there, etc, etc. I don't care. And these illustrations, my all-time favorite folk card, these tiny dragons are exactly how I imagine dragons to look like. And I know that some people said that, you know, this is a cute deck and the dragons are cute, and yes, they are, but in a way that, you know, they are tiny. I imagine them tiny. I don't imagine them being big. But I wouldn't want to piss any of these off, because they are still magical, you know, dragons. They would still kick your ass. And I still love them. So, especially the red ones, and the swords, the black dragons, which I don't think I will have any right now, of course. Oh, look at that. I know, it's so, love it. And I you know, I grew up reading a lot of dragon stories. I mean, not necessarily dragon stories. I have one, which I am so sad, because it was, I think there's 4 books in the series, and only 3 of them were translated back then. And when I read, I have the first 3 books, and I don't have the last one, the 4th one. And I checked it on Book Depository and other places, and it's been such a long while, and it hasn't been republished. So I was never able to read the story, and it makes me sad. Because I was like, I don't care, I buy the books in English and reread the whole thing, but it looks like it's not being sold anymore. But there was always, like, I read Dragonlance Chronicles, and, you know, dragons were always in there, and they were just part of me, not just my life, but me. and this deck is the representation of how I think about them. So if I can keep only one deck, this is it. You know, just saying, nothing comes this as close to this deck. Nothing, honestly. I love the Light Seers, but if I had to choose between the two of them, it's not a choice. You know, it's just, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And the next one is a new one, and I haven't even worked with it or filmed the first impression, which I'm hoping to do this weekend, is the Dungeons and Dragons Tarot. And you might think that, oh, you probably played with the game and you know, connect to that. I don't know who put the ribbon in the box, but they seriously mismeasured the length of it because it's just short. And I have, so no, D&D wasn't a thing around here, or if it was, I was a girl, I wasn't allowed to play, boo. But it connects to those fantasy world that I grew up reading about. You know, like I said, the Dragonlance Chronicles, and I'm trying to, you know, like R.A. Salvatore, the Drist Doden series, which I was like, I loved it. After a while I stopped because Drist became such a whiny bee that I couldn't read it anymore. Maybe I would change my mind if I would read. I want to finish the series, but I'm like, at this point, around like 10 or 12 or even more books behind. But, you know, even though the D&D deck is specific to the D&D world, it's pretty much the same, you know, and I haven't, you know, they are still in order, so I'm just gonna show you a few cards. And I just flip through, and first impression coming next week. So I can understand the word, you know, easily, and I was thinking about, you know, the last time I was talking about, I think the Mariel, I was talking about how I don't have any specific area of, I'm sorry, I don't even know if I was in this frame, that, you know, a culture that I have, that I connect to necessarily, and if there would be one, it would be fantasy. And then this deck came, and I was like, oh, thank you, because now I feel like I have a deck that's specialized like that, you know. Oh, look at that. So I just for that reason, because this is the representation of what I grew up reading and what I still read to this day, but more so my teenage years, when I was just like, you know, devouring any fantasy books that I could get my hands on and spending all my pocket money every month. I remember still going to a fantasy and sci-fi bookshop, which was across the capital, and I had to take about an hour bus drive after school, which was annoying because, you know, I still had to come home, and that was like an hour there, and then an hour back to the school, and then another hour and a half home. So that was like extra 4 hours before I was, you know, at home. But still, every month I couldn't wait to go there and just buy some books and just read them. And, you know, I'm annoyed with the deck because it splits in the middle, and I don't know why. But yeah, this deck represents that, and I would like to get my hands on a copy of The Lost Forest, but that's out of print, and that's an indie deck, and I don't know if it ever comes back, because I don't think people are selling that deck, or if they do, it's just ridiculously expensive, and I cannot buy it. But I hope that it's gonna come back, because I would love to have that deck. But that's a deep, dark side of fantasy, so that's not competing with the overall feeling of the world that this deck represents for me. So because of that, and I don't have any other decks that are like that these days, even if I cannot read with it, I'm not going to, you know, give it away. I will just sit there and look at the artwork and just think about all the books that I read. And okay, I need to put this back. So excuse more. Oops. Okay. And the last two decks are, I hope it's, you know, not annoying, but my own two decks. And not just because, you know, oh, I created them, of course they are irreplaceable, because if I would have found a deck that fit this category, I wouldn't have made it. So far I haven't seen a zombie themed oracle that's about, you know, post-apocalyptic, zombies are here, what do you do with yourself, kind of word. That's one of my favorite ones. And it's a good one on its own, and it's not too bloody, because it's more about how do you survive, or what do you do to survive in those times that we kind of living in these days. And for that, this is you know, irreplaceable, because it fits that theme so well for me, because I created it. And you know, if you're still watching and you liked this deck, let me tell you that there's gonna be a second one coming this Halloween. I started working on the Utopia edition, which is about how do you feel when the zombies are, you know, actually gone and you have to start over, because I think that's an interesting way to look at things as well. And I didn't cover that one in the first deck, so instead of just, you know, releasing it as a second edition with a few extra cards, I decided to do a second deck with as many cards as this one have. I think it's 30. And with those, then there's gonna be 60, so there's gonna be a bigger deck if you want to mix them up and use them together. So if you're interested, please look out for that one. And the next one is the Building Relationships Oracle, or the last one. And I was really looking for a relationship deck, but to be honest, the only like there were a few that were specific to love connections, and this has those you know, keywords as well. But there are other things like community, or just a meeting. It can be anybody. The reconciliation, which is misspelled here, but not in the version that I sell. You know, gossip, how issues represent or how they come up, and just, you know, lending support. I made it because I wanted a deck that can deal with all sorts of relationship issues without the people. So, you know, with relationships, it's very hard to take seriously a deck, or not take seriously, but connect to a deck that has, for example, the one that I thought that would be my relationship deck was the Doreen Virtue, the Angel, you know, the Love, whatever, I don't know, I forgot the name, which you cannot even buy anymore. But after I got a copy, a fake version, because that was the only one that I could get my hands on, and I was like, I'm gonna get a real one as soon as I'm able. I started working with that one, and I just never really connected to the meanings or the images, and that's why I started working on this deck. And there's 70 plus, my favorite in this deck, 70 plus cards, so there's still a lot, there's a lot more keywords that you can use in any type of relationship readings without being worried that the person who you're reading for example, sees themselves in the card. And because sometimes when there's someone on the card that you can't connect to, you just reject the reading because all you see is that whatever type of person on the card, and you don't you don't even hear the message. So with that, this deck can help. So yeah, this is irreplaceable because I do not have any other Oracle decks that are specifically relationship themed and that are so universal and work so well. So yeah. So that is all, I think. Yes, that is all. I hope that this was interesting and this was fun, and I hope, you know, look at that smokish and Embers. And I hope, you know, you don't mind me mentioning my decks, but you know, I created them, so I should be proud, right? Yes, please. But yeah, thank you so much for the hashtag. I know Kelly doesn't really care about these because it's just, you know, people are like, oh, do this, turn this into a hashtag, and then she does it, and then people are like, ooh, a new way to talk about my collection. So yeah, but still, I really enjoy talking about these decks because these tags, hashtags like these help you think about your collection in a different way, and I always love that as well. So thank you so much for being here. Hope this was, you know, entertaining. Please like, subscribe, comment down below because YouTube likes to see those things because it means that what I'm doing is actually, you know, have some value. So even if you just comment down a smiley, that will help my channel. So please do that. And hit that bell icon if you want to catch me doing live readings because I'm trying to get back to that. But because of how life is, I only posted I only schedule it a few hours before I do lives these days. So if you don't want to miss it, please do so. I mean, hit that bell icon, and thank you so much. See you in the next one. Bye.